So the first dubbed episode of the Pokémon Journeys anime aired in Canada on Saturday, so I thought I'd take the time to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on it now, since it won't be releasing in the UK until later this year, as well as America in about a month or so. In this review, I'll be covering any potential spoilers, so if you don't want any plot details or anything like that spoiled, then please click away now, and without further ado, let's get stuck right in. First things first, we have the brand new Pokémon Journeys opening. It's a pretty catchy tune. The lyrics basically describe the synopsis of the show, being about Ash and Go going between all the regions of the world, catching Pokemon, and getting up to the usual hijinks that happens in Pokemon. I actually don't mind this opening, and from first listen, I would say I prefer it to many of the more recent Pokemon openings, such as some of the Sun and Moon ones, but I wouldn't say it was quite on par with some of my favourite Pokemon openings, like Battle Dimension or the Orange Islands theme. One thing I have seen quite a few people upset about is the fact that the opening is only 30 seconds long. However, I think that's been the case for Pokemon openings for quite some time now, but there is a chance that they'll upload an extended version to Spotify. There are a few Pokemon openings already on the Pokemon Spotify page, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibilities that they'll do this. Overall, I'd say this new opening is about above average when it comes to Pokemon openings. Like, it's okay, not bad, but at the same time, I'm not exactly blown away by it. Anyway, let's get into the real meat and potatoes, shall we? The actual episode itself. The episode starts with what I'm pretty sure is our fourth introduction to Ash Ketchum this decade alone. However, this time there's a slight spin on things, with us being introduced to a much younger Ash, which was quite nice to see as it's something different to what we usually get in the first episode of a Pokemon series, and I think we were definitely in need of something new. We see him dash into the kitchen, excited, asking his mum if he can go to Professor Oak's Pokemon camp, which I believe is where he's said to have met Serena in the XY anime, so this actually isn't the first time this Pokemon camp has been mentioned in the anime. And of course, Ash's mom says yes to him going to the camp. I mean, can you imagine if she was just like, nope, and then the credits rolled? Of course she was going to say yes. Which leads to our regularly scheduled opening narration introducing us to the world of Pokemon. I swear this exact same speech is repeated at the beginning of every single Pokemon series and movie. It does a good job of introducing the show to new viewers, of course, but jeez is it monotonous to hear for the millionth time as a returning fan. We get it by now. The narrator says something about the world of Pokemon being amazing, something about people and Pokemon living together, yada yada yada, and then we're back to the plot. We are taken into the forest where we meet a lone Pichu who's about to become Ekans' dinner before Pichu shocks him into absolute oblivion, followed by the narrator literally flat out telling us that Pichu is having trouble controlling his powers instead of, them showing us or letting us figure that out for ourselves. I'll let it slide because this is a children's show after all. However, I did originally watch this with my younger brother, who did interrupt this part by asking me if it was supposed to sound like some sort of documentary. The narrator was just talking that much. Thankfully, however, from what I've seen of the Japanese episodes that are out at the moment, this overuse of the narrator isn't something that continues beyond this point, and was just a thing for this introduction episode, so it's not too much of an issue. Pichu, being all alone, is taken in by a Kangaskhan who finds him and decides to raise him alongside her own cub.
This once lonely Pichu is now happily living with a small group of Kangaskhan.
Yeah, what he said. We then cut to Professor Oak's camp, where we meet two of our new protagonists for this series, Go and Chloe. Chloe was originally called Koharu in the Japanese version of the show, but as always with the Pokemon dub, Japanese names are changed into much more English-sounding names. Chloe is voiced by popular anime voice actor Shirami Lee, known for voicing Lucy from Fairy Tail, among others. Go, on the other hand, keeps his name from the Japanese version and is voiced by Zeno Robinson, and from what I can tell, this is his first role as a proper main character, so that's pretty cool. From what I've heard so far, these two fit the characters really well and do a really good job overall, and I can't wait to hear more from them in the future. The class at Professor Oak's camp is waiting for Ash as he's gone and pulled the typical Ash move and overslept. Well, at least he's consistent. I'll give him that at the very least. Yeah, and then they just decide to flat out just leave without him. Sorry, Ash. You snooze, you lose, I guess, buddy. Oak then explains to us and the class just how catching Pokemon works, letting the class know that they too can be Pokemon trainers when they all eventually turn 10. From here, Go basically takes over the class, showing off his big brain Pokemon knowledge to the class because he's a little smartass. Much to the distaste of Chloe, who would rather learn this stuff from Oak, the actual teacher. Oak then explains the entire process of evolution to both the audience and the class, and if you're not already spotting a theme here, then I'll just explain it to you. From what I can tell, the structure of this episode, and from the series literally just being called Pokemon, with no subtitle in the Japanese series, I think this is meant to serve as a sort of semi-reboot of the series, with the intent to introduce the show to a new generation of kids. I know you could somewhat say this about every series of Pokemon, with the story somewhat resetting with every Pokemon generation, but this one just seems to take it to a whole new level. We are basically a part of this class. As Oak is teaching the kids in the show how the world of Pokemon works, he's also teaching the kids at home in the real world out there, who may not know just what the heck a Pokemon is, and I think that's pretty cool, and I'm okay with all this exposition, as this is the first episode of this entirely new, semi-rebooted series. Chloe tells Go that he isn't going to make any friends if he just acts like a know-it-all all the time, and like a true pro gamer, Go shrugs this off, telling Chloe that he doesn't care about making friends and only cares about catching a Pokemon so rare that nobody has ever seen it before. You know, I can actually relate to Go here, because having no friends and only caring about Pokemon is actually how this video came to be. The pair then spot a Nidoking who is being taunted and beaten the absolute bejesus out of by none other than Mew. And why is Mew doing this? I have completely no idea. It honestly just looks like Mew is just toying with Nidoking just to be a dick, which is kind of sad to be honest. However, it's completely within Mew's character to do this, the little shit. Anyway, they both chase after Mew, with Mew turning into all sorts of different Pokemon during the chase. And I didn't really think this was how this power worked, and I thought that the actual Pokemon that Mew turned into had to be present for Mew to be able to turn into it, but since the anime has never really followed the rules of the game, I'll let this slide. These are some pretty nice visuals after all, I guess. We then cut back to Pichu, who is actually in the same forest as Go and the others right now. The Kangaskhan squad encounter a group of Chansey who offer up their eggs for the Kangaskhan and their cubs to eat, which is pretty strange, because, like, wouldn't there be baby Cleffers growing inside of those? Like, I really hope not, because, yeah, they've just been devoured. Yikes. The baby Kangaskhan that's been travelling with Pichu throughout the episode also spots Mew and decides to chase after him, causing its mother and Pichu to worry about him and to go looking for him. While chasing Mew, the baby Kangaskhan actually nearly plummets to its death, causing Mew to hop in and save it and return it to its mother. So it turns out Mew isn't a complete arsehole after all. Maybe he just has some weird prejudice against Nidokings that he needs to work out. Oh yeah, Go and Chloe are also present for this, with Oak then catching up to them and scolding them for running off and leaving the group. Oak then explains to Go and Chloe that the mysterious Pokemon that they were just chasing was most likely Mew, and Go expresses his desire to turn 10 so that he can set out on his journey to complete his newfound dream of eventually catching Mew. A long but unspecified amount of time passes, and Pichu realizes that the Kangaskhan can no longer fend for both him and her own cub, and with him having grown enough to look after himself, he decides to leave the group of Kangaskhan in a pretty sad scene, ending with him evolving into the Pikachu we know and love today. Honestly, although this scene was done pretty well, it probably would have worked a lot better and pulled at the heartstrings a lot more if Pichu had just spent a few more episodes with the Kangaskhan, as then we would have actually had time to get attached to them all before Pichu had to depart. But I can see why the writers wanted to keep this whole backstory stuff as just a one episode thing, and I guess we never know, there could be more backstory episodes like this in the future, and we'll just have to wait and see. From here, the episode then cuts forward a few years, and we get a short recap of how Ash and Pikachu first met. And I cannot thank the writers enough for choosing to not spend too much time on this, as this story of Ash and Pikachu meeting has been retold quite a number of times at this point. This is followed by scenes of Chloe and Go in present day, now both 10 years old. Go is preparing to head out on his journey to achieve his ultimate dream of catching Mew, and that's where the episode leaves off. Being an older fan, I could tell this episode just wasn't made for me. There's a lot of exposition and explaining of just how the Pokemon world works. This was definitely made for younger, new fans who are watching this as their first ever Pokemon series, which I can respect. Just because something isn't made for me doesn't mean it's bad after all. This episode did a good job of introducing us to the new protagonists of Go and Chloe, as well as establishing Go's goal of catching Mew. It also serves as a pretty good introduction to Pokemon as a whole, and if you ask me, it definitely succeeds at what it's trying to do. I just hope we get more Pichu backstory episodes in the future, because that stuff was bloody cute. I'm also a massive fan of this new anime's art style. It looks like a blend of the detailed backgrounds seen in the XY anime, and the more expressive cartoony characters seen in the Sun and Moon anime, and I think they just mesh together really well to make something amazing. Overall, I'd give this episode about a 7 out of 10, because although it's not really for me, I can tell that it serves as a pretty nice introduction to the series, as well as Pokemon as a whole. Assuming this video does well and you guys enjoy it, I plan on doing these videos for all the English episodes of Pokémon Journeys as they release, so leave me some feedback in the comments below, letting me know how I can improve for the next episode. And if more of this is what you guys would like to see, then be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Thanks guys, see ya.